Greetings everyone, I am RajaRao Pagidipalli. A warm welcome to you to my podcast, The Butterfly Effect, Movements that Shift the World. Today we begin with a simple but powerful idea, a tiny flash of a butterfly's wing. It can set off a storm on the other side of the world. In life too, small actions, small words, small decisions, they can create extraordinary change that we don't expect at that moment. Sometimes one smile can heal someone's entire day. One message can start a movement. One idea whispered in a small room can echo across generations. Just like how one photo of a chai in a clay cups, it started trending again. Not because of any big campaign, but because of few people who shared something they believed in. That tiny act, it created a ripple effect, a cultural return to roots, a cultural return to earth, a cultural return to simplicity. So, today we are talking about those ripples, the forgotten stories, the unnoticed beginnings, the everyday movements that quietly shifted the direction of families, communities, and even our nations. We are going to explore how little movements trigger big transformations, how ordinary people spark extraordinary change, and how you hold the power to start your own ripple in the world. So settle in, open your mind. Let's journey together into the world of small beginnings and big impacts. Before we look at how different generations shaped our journey, let's connect to our theme. The idea is simple. A small movement can change your life. A small life can change a community. A small community can change a nation. Every generation did not transform India with big revolution or dramatic events alone. The real shifts, they came from small daily actions. A prayer at dawn, a movie scene that touched someone's heart, a new idea whispered between friends, a single decision made in a quiet room. History is not built only by great speeches or heroic battles. It is shaped by ordinary people doing small things consistently. So now let us see how each generation created ripples. Ripples that turned into waves of change when India was still healing from the emotional wounds of independence and partition. Life was so simple. Life was so quiet. Life was deeply personal. Spirituality lived in the rhythm of daily life. In the temple bells ringing at sunrise in Hindu homes. In the Ajan calling the faithful from the mosque. And in the church hymns sung softly on Sunday mornings. At that time, India became the spiritual lighthouse for the world. Yoga was no longer just physical exercise. It became a path to emotional clarity. Meditation was not just a ritual. It became a journey inward. Spiritual teachers in all religions, they traveled across continents, and seekers returned home with new coachings, new meanings, and new ways of understanding the self. And all of this began not with revolutions, but with small, quiet acts. One family doing yoga on terrace, one person sitting silently in a garden reflecting one life, one teacher speaking about inner peace to a small group of listeners. Those simple actions, they grew into movements. That is the butterfly effect, a single breath of awareness spreading across a nation and then across the world. By the time Generation X came of age, India had changed. The challenges were different, but the hunger for meaning remained. The late 80s, they reflected survival, struggle, and resilience. And cinema mirrored that reality with intensity. But the 1990s, they arrived like a fresh air. Liberalization opened new doors, new markets, new dreams, and the emotional landscape of cinema shifted with it. Films didn't just entertain. Movies, they began to shape how we felt, how we loved, how we imagined ourselves. A single movie could transform the mood of an entire generation. Surely, the movie, surely it taught courage and loyalty. DDLJ, it redefined love and family bonds. One song could cross borders. One dialogue could become lifelong wisdom. Cinemas, cinemas, they were not just halls. They became classrooms of emotion. And like the baby boomers, their spiritual shift. This too started with the small sparks. One filmmaker daring to tell a new kind of story. One actor delivering a moment of truth on screen. One audience member being moved enough to see life differently. That is the butterfly effect. A story becoming a shared emotional language for millions. Then 2000s, India was moving at global speed. Year Y2K started. India was moving at global speed. Now let's talk about the millennials. A generation that grew up between two worlds, the old and the new. Just imagine this. As children, they watched Shaktiman, but as teenagers, they were dancing to MTV. They wrote letters to friends and then shifted to chatting on Yahoo Messengers. Yes, they stood in queues for movie tickets and then suddenly they had Book My Show at their fingertips. They were the bridge. They were the bridge generation, the one who saw India open its door to the world. Malls, internet, mobile phones, IT jobs, global brands, coffee culture. But more importantly, they experienced a deep inner shift. For the very first time, young people started saying, I want to choose my life. I want to choose my life for myself. They questioned the traditions. They explored new careers. They traveled alone. They expressed their feelings openly. They valued friendship deeply. They spoke about mental health. They supported gender equality. They began prioritizing experiences over possessions. Their transformation didn't happen with loud slogans or protests. It happened quietly through small everyday decisions. One woman starting her own business instead of taking the safe job. One young man choosing to share childcare responsibilities. One student opening up about anxiety and encouraging others to speak freely. One traveler choosing to explore rural India instead of luxury resorts. One person carrying a cloth bag instead of plastic one. Yes, even fashion reflected this shift. Saris with sneakers, khadi with confidence, and handloom are becoming cool again. Not just the clothing, but identity also. These small personal choices, multiplied across millions of lives, reshaped the values of an entire generation. That is the butterfly effect. A silent, gentle revolution inside the heart, where life becomes more than survival, where identity becomes something created, where identity becomes something owned, celebrated. Millennials didn't change India with noise. They changed India softly, like a butterfly's wing, shifting the direction of the wind. Then Generation Z. Gen Z grew up in a world where boundaries melted, where a village student could learn coding on YouTube, where a phone was not just a device but a gateway to the world, and where dreams were not restricted by geography, language, or background. This was the generation that did not just watch cricket. They celebrated MS Dhoni's calm courage, Virat Kohli's anger, Rohit Sharma's effortless class, and the rise of the new heroes in every field. This was also the time when sports dream expanded beyond cricket. PV Sindhu, Neeraj Chopra, Mary Kom, Meera Bai Chanu, they showed that India can win anywhere in anything. A single goal from Neeraj didn't just shine, it lit fire in playgrounds across small towns. A single smash from Sindhu, it made millions pick up a racket, but Gen Z didn't stop at sports. They became YouTubers, they become application developers, they become social media influencers. They have started startups, meme creators, stand-up comedians, redefining what career means. That's what they've done. They embrace mental health conversations. They embrace gender equality, sustainability, entrepreneurship, then thrift culture, vegan choices, fitness, meditation, and mindful living. All while being the most digitally connected generation in human history. They believed in identity, not imposed identity, but chosen identity. I am what I decided to be. That is their motto. I am what I decided to be. And above all, Gen Z showed India that dreams are no longer limited by money, language, or city zone. All they need is an internet connection, one mentor, one moment of inspiration, one spark to create a wave. That is the true Generation Z spirit, ambition, confidence, creativity, and courage. One victory can ignite a million ambitions. That's the butterfly effect. Effort turning into national inspiration. Slowly, we are arrived at Gen Alpha. The children born into tablets, the children born into touchscreens, the children born into voice assistants and instant answers. For us, cartoons came once in a week on Sunday morning. On Sunday mornings, we waited, we anticipated, we cherished. But today, a child touches a screen and steps into a universe of words within seconds. They learn alphabets through songs generated by AI. They solve puzzles guided by cartoon characters. They explore planets in 3D. They listen to stories narrated by voices that adapt to their emotions. Their classrooms are not limited to blackboards. The entire world has become a classroom. A child in a small town can learn coding. Another can publish digital art. Another can speak English with confidence by listening to global content. This is generation that doesn't imagine the future. They interact with the future. And remember, this transformation didn't happen with grand revolutions. It began with tiny movements. One parent giving a child a learning app instead of a toy. One teacher using YouTube instead of chalk. One school introducing a digital smart board. These little choices, they were multiplied, they were spread, and they reshaped learning itself. That is the butterfly effect. A single touch on screen changing not just how children learn, but how they think, how they create, and how they dream. One animated lesson, one encouraging parent, one creative application. They can spark a child's lifelong passion. That's the butterfly effect. Imagination becoming innovation. We have seen many trends set by social media too. One viral story of a girl from a small village cracking the UPSC, it touched hearts across the country. One short reel of a teacher dancing in a class to engage his students, it gets shared everywhere. And suddenly, the world sees the beauty of education again. So the question is, what causes this sudden explosion? Why do some ideas take off like Diwali rockets while others just fizzle out like damp crackers? That's what we are here to explore. The science of the tipping point, the moment when something ordinary turns extraordinary. It's like an invisible movement of transformation when efforts becomes effects, when talk becomes trend, when belief becomes movement. Whether you are starting a business, you are starting a campaign, or you are starting a new habit, understanding this tipping point, it can be your secret weapon. Because the truth is simple. Big revolution, they begin with small revolts. And if little things can make a big difference, then my friends, you and I can do. So let's begin to discover how small actions, smart ideas, and simple choices they can tip the world towards change. To get this effect, the answer lies in what we call the three golden rules of social change: the champions, the charm, and the circumstances. Let us decode this in a simple, in our own style. Rule number one: the law of the few. The law of the few, the champions. The champions. Change doesn't need an army. Change doesn't need an army. Sometimes it just needs a few passionate people who refuse to stay silent. In every movement, you will find three types of people: the connectors, those social butterflies who know everyone from chai wall to chairman; the informers, the ones who always have the right information before anyone else, like your friend who somehow knocks every new government scheme and every new cafe in town; and the persuaders, those who can sell ice to an Eskimo or convince your whole colony to join a blood donation camp. Think about it. Wasn't it just a few inspired youth who started India's Chipko movement by hugging trees? Or a handful of students in Hyderabad who began the Swachh campus drive? It's always start small. A few champions light the torch, and soon the whole street shines. That's the law of the few. Change begins with a few who believes deeply. Then the rule number two: the stickiness factor, the charm, the charm. Having a great idea is not enough. The message has to stick. The message has to stick. It has to stick like your mom's advice that you can never forget. Stickiness means creating a message people remember, people repeat, people relate to it. That is why we all still hum those old TV or radio songs. See, they are simple, they are emotional, and they are unforgettable. Those old songs. That's how powerful ideas stay in people's hearts. It's not about shouting louder. It's about saying something so meaningful, so emotional, that it echoes inside others. If you want to start a movement, make it sticky. Make it sticky like Fevicol. Use stories, use emotions, use simplicity. Because the brain forgets the facts, but it never forgets feelings. So let's turn to rule number three: the power of context. The circumstances, the power of context, the circumstances. Now comes the third, it is the third point, most surprising rule. Sometimes people don't change, but their environment does. People may not change, but their environment change. And that's enough to transform behavior. You clean one dirty street, and suddenly people stop littering it. You add one street light, and crime rates fall. You put a dustbin near the bus stop, and magically wrappers stop flying in the wind. That's the power of context. When we fix the small things around us, the big problems start healing themselves. You see, even in New York, when crime fell dramatically, experts thought it was magic, but it was not. It started with something as small as removing gravity from trains and catching fare dodgers. Clean surroundings, they created clean behavior. And the same applies to us. When one classroom becomes disciplined, the whole school follows. When one family starts composting, the neighborhood copies. When one person speaks politely, others respond with kindness. So, these three rules, the champions, the charm, and the circumstances, they remind us that big revolutions don't need big budgets. They need the right people. They need the right people, the right message, and the right environment. A matchstick is tiny, but it can burn forests. A single WhatsApp message can start a movement. A single smile can break a barrier. It's not about how much you do, it's about how meaningfully you do it. So, my dear listeners, if you want to change your school, your company, your community, your nation, don't wait for a miracle. Be the connector who inspires others, create messages that stick, and build an environment that lifts people up and not pulls them down. Because at the end of the day, every tipping point begins with a small, brave choice made by someone just like you. Just a few people, not thousands, not billions. Just a few people, they can set off a chain reaction. They can set off a chain reaction that changes the world forever. It's called the law of few. They are the connectors. They are the mavens. They are the salesmen. The connectors, the human internet. These are the people who connect dots. These are the people who connect dots, who connect people. They connect people effortlessly. These connectors, types of people, they are like human Wi-Fi networks, everywhere, linking everyone. Think about that one friend who is always introducing to someone. Arey, meet my cousin. He works in media. He can help you. Or the auntie in your colony who knows everyone's birthdays, blood groups, even love stories. Connectors don't just know people. They bridge walls. They bring the doctor, the driver, and the dancer into the same conversation. And when they share an idea, it doesn't just travel. It travels far. Remember how one Delhi food blogger's post made a tiny momo stall famous overnight. That's the connector effect. When a connector shares, the world listens. So if you are someone who loves bringing people together, you are not just social, you might be society's secret engine of change. Now let's meet the second group, the mavens. These are the people who know things and they love sharing what they know. They are the ones who know where to get the best deal, the cleanest dhaba, the fastest laptop for your budget. Ask them about anything. You can ask the mavens about anything and you will get an entire seminar, a Google sheet and 3 comparison charts. But here is the magic. Mavens don't share information for profit. They share it because they care. They want to help. They feel responsible for guiding others. When a maven speaks, people trust. When a maven recommends, people act. That's a maven at work, quietly spreading useful wisdom like social vitamins. Then third category of people, the salesman, the persuader of hope. The third kind, I don't mean those who sell washing powder or mobile recharges here when I mention the salesman. I mean, these people are the charmers who can sell ideas. They have that spark, that charisma, that smile that says, trust me, this will work. You know that one friend who can convince a whole gang to go trekking at 5 a.m. or the teacher who turns even boring mathematics into magic, or the leader who makes people believe is change is possible. That's the salesman spirit. They don't push, they inspire. They don't manipulate, they motivate. A salesman is that person who plants courage in your heart when you doubt yourself. They are human energy boosters. The people of the few. Here is the real revelation. The world doesn't change because of everyone. It changes because of a few. Think about it. Maybe you are a connector, the one who unites hearts. Maybe you are a maven, the one who spreads truth. Maybe you are a salesman, the one who lights the hope. Whatever your role, remember, you don't need 1 million followers to make a difference. You just need the courage to start the chain. So next time you feel small, remember this. It only takes a few drops to start the monsoon. It only takes one spark to light the lamp. It only takes you to start the change. Maybe your small act of kindness becomes someone's tipping point. Maybe your one idea travels through a connector, gains life through a maven, and spreads through a salesman, and suddenly the world shifts a little closer to God. Because real revolutions, they don't start in stadiums. They start in conversations. They start in classrooms. They start in living rooms. They start in even in podcasts like this. Let's see how do some ideas they stick like Fevicol while others vanish like soap bubbles. That's the secret of the stickiness factor. The art of making your message memorable, relatable, and repeatable. Let me give you an example. Do you remember those old political campaigns? Garibi Hatao by Indira Gandhi. Garibi Hatao. It was simple, but it was emotional and it was unforgettable. Even a child could repeat it. If you see Amul, the taste of India, every week a new cartoon, a new pun, small, witty, and memorable. The message stuck because it connected with our daily lives. Now, compare that with some of the dull, long, serious awareness posters we see on walls. You know, the ones nobody reads. They talk at people, not to people. And that's why they fade away. The posters, they talk at people, they do not talk to people. So, they will fade away. Real stickiness is not about being flashy. It's about being felt. It's about creating that, oh, wow. It has to create that moment. It has to create that moment in someone's heart. In one experiment, children learned better when the show didn't just talk. It made them participate. Remember Blue's Clues. They didn't just teach ABCs. They made learning an adventure. Think of Chota Bheem, Gully Gully Sim Sim. They teach, but they also entertain. That's the golden rule. When learning becomes play, the mind stays. Even our grandmothers, they knew this trick. Remember those bedtime stories? They didn't say, be brave. They told tales of clever rabbits, talking crows, and we remember the lesson for life. So, whether you are a teacher, a leader, or just someone trying to make a difference, don't just inform people, inspire them. Make your words stick. Use stories, emotions, repetitions, and relevance. So, let's move to third golden rule, the power of context. Have you ever noticed how your mood changes with your surroundings? At a clean, green park, you walk slower, smile more. But step into a dirty bus stand and suddenly everyone seems angry. That's not coincidence. That's a context. The idea is simple. People don't just behave according to who they are. They behave according to where they are. In the 1980s, New York City was drowning in crime, murders, robberies, fear everywhere. Then something surprising happened. Instead of starting with big glass, they started small. They cleaned graffiti from trains. They caught fare evaders. They fixed broken windows. And suddenly, the entire city's behavior changed. Crime dropped. People began to feel safe again. It was like when you see one person sweeping, you feel embarrassed to throw trash. That's the context. That's the context working silently. When we change the environment, we change the energy. Think of your own life. Think of your own life. When your room is messy, your mind feels messy too. But clean it up. Open the window. Let the sunlight in. Suddenly you feel alive, ready to conquer the world. That's not magic. That's a psychology. Even in schools, when the walls are colorful and the teachers smile, students behave better. In small surroundings, big impact. That's the power of context. The invisible force that shapes how we think, how we act, and how we feel. And yes, it works in reverse too. Neglect breeds neglect. One broken chair becomes two. One rude comment starts at a culture of silence. One corrupt act normalizes many. Don't wait for big change. Fix the small cracks. Fix the small cracks before they break the wall. If you want a peaceful society, create peaceful spaces. If you want honesty, start with small acts of truth. If you want kindness, create an environment where kindness is seen and celebrated. Because every great transformation starts not with the mountain, but with the people that moved it. If we combine these three truths, the few who care, the message that stick, and the context that supports change, we can tip our society towards greatness. Our nation does not need millions shouting for change. It needs a few people whispering hope consistently. So next time you post, teach, lead, or simply talk, make your message sticky, your actions visible, and your environment inspiring. Because when small things change, big things follow. And maybe, just maybe, you are the small thing that will make a big difference. So dear friends, let me start with a simple question. How many people do you really know? Not on your WhatsApp, not on your Facebook. I mean, how many people can you truly connect with? How many people can you truly connect with, remember their faces, care for them, and feel comfortable talking to them? Science says, and life proves, the science says the magic number is around 150. Yes, 150 people. That's about how many genuine relationships one human can maintain. Now, before you say, my WhatsApp groups alone have thousands of people, you may say, in my WhatsApp groups, I have thousands of people. Let me ask, how many of them would actually pick up your phone call at midnight if you need their assistance or help? That's the point. When a group crosses this 150 mark, something invisible breaks. Trust fades, communication weakens, and suddenly, instead of friends, we get files, rules, and hierarchies. In our old villages, this number was nature's law. Each village was small. Each village was small enough that everyone knew who grew what crop, who fought with whom, and whose cow entered whose field. There was intimacy, belonging, accountability. But look at our modern flats and gated communities, hundreds of families. Yet we barely know our next door neighbor. We have CCTV for safety, but no conversations for connection. Some smart companies, they understood this secret. One global firm designed its factories to never exceed 150 workers. Why? Because they knew smaller groups build stronger bonds. When people feel seen, they feel responsible. When people feel connected, they perform better. So, whether you are running an NGO, a school, or a company, remember, it's not about growing bigger. It's about growing closer. It's not about adding numbers. It's about adding meaning. The power of context is not in the walls, it's in the relationships inside them. If you see, there was a time when small shoe brand became a global craze almost overnight. Why? Not because of a big budget ad, but because of a few cool connectors and creative translators. They made it happen. These translators didn't just sell shows, they sold a story. They took an idea that belonged to a small group, skaters, rebels, artists, and made it understandable, lovable, and desirable for the masses. Have you ever noticed how something simple becomes cool when it is reintroduced differently? Look around. It happens everywhere. Bullet bikes that once thumped through small towns are now they are the symbols of travel dreams, weekend rides on Instagram. The old cassettes era, those hit songs we danced to at our family weddings, celebrations, they came back. They came back as remixes in clubs and headphones. Same tune, new beats, new generation. Even the simple cotton shirts, trousers, once our grandparents' fashion, the same returned as vintage aesthetic in college campus and cities. One photo, one trend video, one influencer wearing something different, and suddenly everyone wants to try it. That's how culture shifts, quietly, stylishly, one small spark at a time. That's the power of translation, the art of taking an idea and making it speak the language of people. In marketing, in leadership, in life, it's not enough to have a good message. You need to translate it. You need to translate it so others can feel it's theirs. So, if you want your idea, your cause, your campaign to tip, don't shout louder. Speak smarter. Speak the people's language. Because remember, ideas don't spread when people hear them. They spread when people see themselves in them. And that's exactly what the show story teaches us. When authenticity meets reliability, when authenticity meets relatability, when authenticity meets coolness, then the coolness becomes, the relatability becomes contagious. So, whether you are a teacher, leader, or a dreamer, be a translator. Take your idea from your heart and make it travel into others' hearts. That's how small ideas tip into movements. You see, in some parts of the world, even something as tragic as suicide, it spreads like a trend among young people. Believe it or not, it's a shocking but true. One act gave permission for others to follow. The same happens with smoking, drinking, or other harmful habits. They don't spread because of products, but because of people. Some teens pick up smoking not because they love nicotine, but because they want to look cool like that one confident friend or celebrity. We see this every day on social media. A trend starts, maybe a risky stunt or toxic behavior, and suddenly everyone is copying it. Why? Because we are wired. We are wired to imitate what seems powerful or popular. But here is where hope shines. If bad habits can spread, so can good ones. What if kindness became the new cool? What if fitness challenges went viral like dances? What if honesty and empathy became social trends? We can make that happen by changing the models of influence. Parents, teachers, leaders, we must create role models worth copying. Because once positivity becomes aspirational, society begins to heal. So the solution is not always banning or preaching, it's replacing. Replace harmful influences with inspiring ones. replace fake heroes with the real change makers. And you, yes, you listening right now. You're listening right now. You might just be that person who starts that chain reaction. Remember, a single candle lights up a dark heart. A single voice can start a movement. A single heart can change the world. That's how we create the tipping point for a better tomorrow. One person, one act, one spark at a time. My friends, small things do make a big difference. In relationships, in ideas, in actions. Never underestimate your ripples. Because every ripple one day becomes a wave. A ripple becomes a wave. Let's pause for a moment and think, how do great changes really begin? Not with a bang, not with a revolution, but often with a small focused action done with belief. Big transformations are not the result of big budget or big speeches. They are born from small, smart experiments, from people who dare to taste, who dare to try, who dare to believe that even a little push can move a mountain. Focus, test, believe. Don't try to fix everything at once. Find one problem. Focus. Find one problem. Focus. Find one idea. Focus. Find one goal. Focus. Find them. That makes your heart beat faster. Then test. Don't wait for perfect plans. Try it small. Fail small. Learn fast. Every change maker is a tester before they are a hero. Believe. Believe that your effort matters. Even if the world doubts you, your belief is the first brick of the bridge to change. Remember, the world doesn't need a million perfect plans. It needs a few imperfect believers who refuse to give up. So ask yourself today, what is that one idea you have been sitting on? What is that one act of kindness, one project, one message you want to spread? Maybe it's teaching a child. Maybe it's starting a cleanliness drive. Maybe it's just speaking up when others stay silent. Whatever it is, start small. Start now. Because every big wave, it begins as a single ripple. You don't have to move the entire ocean. Just create your ripple and let your courage tip the world. My dear listeners, as we journey through generations, stories, moments, and dreams, one truth has been shining quietly in the background. Change is never born from something huge. It begins in the smallest of moments. A thought, a choice, a gesture, a spark. This is the heart of the butterfly effects, moments that shift the world. And I, RajaRao Pagidipalli, am deeply grateful to share this space of reflection and hope with you. Remember, change is not about power, it is about persistence. It is one focused step, it is one tested idea, one unshakable belief, even when others don't see it. History has never moved because someone waited for the perfect time. It moved because someone dared to begin. So, my dear listeners, go ahead and light your spark. Start that habit, pick up the dream, take that small step because the tipping point for tomorrow begins with you. And one day, when the world changes, you will know that it began quietly right here inside you.